Confusion surrounded Sam. He was sitting on a chair in an endless dark room. Across the room, a set of glowing red eyes opened up and stared at him. He flinched, and then forced himself to stare back. "Where am I?" he asked. "Where you have always been." The eyes answered. "Am I dreaming? Is this real? I can't remember. It is the place between. You are on the verge of waking." Sam tried to look away, but couldn't. "Why are you torturing me? What are you?" The eyes slowly blinked, reopening with a hotter gaze. "I'm not torturing you. You torture yourself. You're a nightmare. Some sort of nightmare alien thing. I know it. You're torturing me." "Let me go!" Sam shouted. "I am none of those things. Your mind puts them on me, labeling me. I am unknown to you, and life is afraid of the unknown. You do not have to be afraid, Sam." Sam shook his head. "I won't fall for it. You're that thing. The hagfish know what you are. I'll get them to confess. Do not be afraid, Sam. Sam, Sam, wake up, Sam." The eyes closed, but kept repeating the words. "Sam, Sam, Sam." Sam screamed awake while Olivia was shaking him. She was looking down into his now open eyes. "Sam! Wake up! It's time!" Sam looked around, the dream losing its edges. He looked at Olivia, and then to the wet spot in the bed. "Oh, shit! Yeah, oh, shit! Help me! We've got to go to the hospital!" Sam called out into the room. "Orbit! Alert the hospital! Get our prep team ready! Baby's coming!" Orbit appeared in the room's doorway. "Already ahead of you, sir. Cammy is wheeling a chair here now. She will be arriving in 2 minutes." Sam looked at Olivia, both smiling. "You got this, Olivia. Hold on. I'm going to get you down there, and it's going to happen just like we practiced." Olivia held his hands and started crying. "Ow. There's another one." Sam let her squeeze his hands. "I'll keep count." Jahadin stood in his dojo, staring down the unarmored Go-Adur, Survivor. "Come at me, friend." Survivor struck out with his bifurcated right arms. Jahadin parried the punch with his upper arm, tucked into the creature's core body, and flipped him over and onto the ground. The human spun over the survivor's back and pinned him to the floor. He pulled up on his arm, inflicting pain. "Do you yield?" Survivor tapped the ground with his forehead. "I yield." Jahadin got up, and then offered his hand to assist. Survivor took it. Survivor looked over the human. "Despite all this training, I'm none closer to being your equal. I do not think I am gaining anything from this." Jahadin walked across the mat over to the water tank and poured 2 glasses. He walked back over, offering one to the Go-Adur. "If you do not think you have gained anything, I think you should spar one of your untrained kin." Survivor walked over to his hovering suit of armor and sipped the water. "That is a good idea. I think I shall." Jahadin walked over and looked at the suit. "You still doing well selling your jewelry?" "Yes. I have my subordinate starting a new black polonium line with small shield emitters built in. The materials are rarer, but we sell them for quite the profit. Your fellow humans buy them repeatedly. Your kind seem to like adorning themselves as much as my own." "Some do. I knew it would take off," Jahadin said. Survivor turned and looked him over. "Why do you not have adornments? Other humans have skin markings, fill their homes with objects, and wear numerous bright things. Yet, you and your spaces are quite bare. You are different." Jahadin sat down on the floor mat and sipped his water. "I went through some things in life, and decided to take a different path." Survivor finished his water and set it on a nearby stand. He then started configuring the armor to allow him to rest-squeeze into it. "Am I a close enough ally for you to elaborate that with?" he said as he started slipping his arm in. "Are you an ally?" Jahadin asked. "Your species is a member of another cluster of aliens. Where does the Clouder stand with the Great Arm lately?" Survivor forced his split arms together into the one hole and tightened the fasteners. "The Great Arm. Well, it was never as cohesive as this Clouder already is. Everything is tentative. Technology is shared, yes, but at great expense to each other. Treaties are elaborate, costly, and binding, but they are not built on the trust that is seen here. This accord and these lesser species uniting without so many flaws is a wonder. My people cannot help but be in awe of it. Jahadeen, still cross-legged on the floor, laughed. There are lots of flaws. He laughed again. It is still a new experiment here, and you are in awe? How long has the great arm species been together? Eons. That is something to be in awe of. You've been working together longer than my species has been in space, it seems. Survivor reached in and fitted his other set of arms into the other side. Working together, maybe, but we cannot live together like it is here. Somehow here, people set aside things so as to cohabitate. My people are still on our ship because we do not want to give up any part of our lifestyle. Even coming here, walking through your station is abhorrent to most of my contemporaries. It is your nature, yours specifically, that I find so fascinating. My bare studio? Exactly, Survivor said as he wiggled his intricate metal-worked armored fingers. You are able to reduce your needs. It is quite fascinating. And freeing. Jahadeen said, getting up and placing his empty cup beside Survivor's. It is not reducing needs, though. It is reducing wants. Survivor looked him over again. There is a translation error. Say that last part again. Jahadeen took a step away, starting his favorite kata. Air, food, water, rest. These are needs. My body must have them for me to go from one day to the next. For humans, we also need contact with others as we are highly social. Without it, our days will be shortened. Everything else can be cut out without causing any shortening of life. Survivor pulled his legs into the floating suit. You need a suit if you wish to go into the void. What about that cup for the water you drank? You need lots of things. You need these mats on the floor to protect yourself when we spar. Jahadeen shook his head and did a flip landing next to the water tank. He cupped his hand and let the water roll over it. He lifted the full hand to his mouth and sipped. Then he turned and looked at Survivor in his suit. It is all wants, even me wanting to make it to the next day. I try and release that desire, that yearning for anything beyond what I am. Survivor's suit powered up, and tiny gems scattered throughout the metal weave started to glow. He hovered over to Jahadeen, his alien tongue altered through the suit's speakers. You want this dojo, and you want to train others, and you want money. You have wants. Jahadeen nodded. Yes, I acknowledge them, but I do not need them. If I quit this dojo and wander the trade halls, am I no longer me? You would not be the leader of this dojo any longer. Correct, but would I cease to be? Would this body disappear if I didn't run a dojo? Survivor shifted to his left, thinking for a moment. You would still be alive, yes, but you wouldn't be you. Who would I be then? You would lose your titles. You would have no home, no place to train students. You would be less. Jahadeen shook his head. I would still be me. I would have the same potential as when I arrived at this station. All that is me would still exist. That is the core, that potential. I am not this dojo or these mats or anything else I could own. I am merely this flesh and potential, and even that is debatable. So you think I should give up my status, my armor, and live as you do? Jahadeen rolled away from the water tank and started another kata, speaking in between fist thrusts. Things assist us in our potentials. They are not needs, though. Nothing is needed, only wanted. If you want something, find avenues to achieve it, or don't. Realize that your wants are not needs. If you chose to not follow a want anymore, own that choice. Just realize, you chose the wants, and don't let the wants force your life. Survivor looked down at his armored body. I have honed this suit since I was young. He paused, contemplating. It has felt like me, yet your words ring true. I am not this suit. My people are not suits. We can live outside them, yet we never do. Jahadeen nodded. You're starting to see. I do. This is the core. I never understood my intrigue, but it just snapped into place. Your species has a freedom that mine do not. To be out of armor is disgust. I feel it in my core, hurting when I am naked. Yet I can live outside of it. Jahadin jumped and did a kick. Landing, he looked up and spoke. If you were outside of your armor for long periods of time, would your life be shortened? Yes. The stress of being naked would be detrimental for the biosystems. It would take its toll over time. Then it is a bodily need, similar to my species needing contact with others. Yet, it still stems from the want of seeing more. Curious things to think on human. You think on these topics often? Jahadin nodded. Always. It is called unattachment. When you realize being alive is something you want and not a need, it adds a layer of fulfillment to each breath. This moment, with you, is not something I need, but something I want and chose to do. We are living something I dreamed into being. A realization of your potential, Survivor said. Exactly. Jahadin smiled wide and continued his kata. Survivor floated in place for several minutes. He turned to look at Jahadin as the human continued his forms. My people, many peoples, they follow unwritten rules. The whole Great Arm operates off of thinking everyone's wants are needs. Our operations are routine, ordered, because we see them as needs. It is mechanical, structured. You change so easily, bending, both in body and mind. It is because of this unattachment to both things and thoughts. That is right? Jahadin nodded. Survivor turned, still thinking. I have seen it in the small ones. Across the rim they are simple, looking at their wall etchings, but are no more than a nuisance. Something we step on or exterminate. But here they are warriors, lawmakers, hunters, makers. It is this ability of you humans. This is a magic. Jahadin started a run and performed a cartwheel that led into a spiral flip. He landed near Survivor. After a few breaths, he looked over at his student. It is the greatest magic I have ever found. Survivor stared through intricate colored visor down at his hands. I am at a loss. I thought I knew what I was. Yet, I am not this armor. I can remake it. I can change it. I don't know what I can be. He turned and looked at Jahadin. Who exactly am I then? My name, title, they are not me. This is a very dangerous line of thought. Jahadin nodded. It is the concept of freedom versus conformity. My people have tried to erase this idea many times throughout history. They use different techniques to make people forget that this is all a choice. The way we build our homes, our naming methods, how we teach our young, pretty much everything is a choice, a want. Those in power try to eliminate that choice and make that choice for their peoples. When your choices are taken, your freedom to be whatever you want is taken. Yet when you see it is all made up, your freedom is found. No, my people are connected. I cannot just choose different. There are inherent repercussions. I would lose everything I have if I were to change as you do. Jahadin laughed, raising his arms up to his side. Lose what? Lose family? Lose friends? What about access to the world you were raised on? How about everything your species has ever known ever? Could you give that up and just go out into the universe? Survivor looked at the human for a moment. You gave up everything to be here. Jahadin nodded. I arrived here with nothing, and yet I still am. I am new, reborn, learning, and free. Exactly, the human said. In the heart of the consortium tower, the continual news network was broadcasting its stream. 2 obelisks were standing side by side in front of a display mass flux. The one on the left motioned with its feelers at the flux as the flux shifted into the form of a human female holding an infant. The one of the right spoke into the hollow camera. Here on Twain Station, in the heart of the Clouder Allied Systems, we have breaking news. The human president Sam Clemens has just reproduced using a battle-hardened female Oblivion pilot. The spawn is reported as healthy and of the male subset of human. The obelisk on the left spoke up. Reports coming in. It will be named Langdon. The human Sam refused to cut the umbilicus from the mother and let the heir on staff cut the length of tissue for him. We are hearing that this is a normal tradition of humans and that it is odd for Sam to turn it down. Implications of this oddity will be assessed. The right obelisk motioned with its feelers as the 3 days model changed. Human infants are reliant on the female that produces them, as the female will make nutrient liquids for its consumption. They are oddly incapable for a long time, relying on other humans to take care of them constantly. This is a potential weakness of the species, and we the Empire will have to adapt to accommodate if we wish to aid in the production of more humans. The left obelisk took over speaking again. Report in from Sparrow now. It appears a human colony there has created something called a daycare to assist humans in the raising of the spawn. Humans appear to be far more hive-minded than originally thought. Rather than having a designated breeder as some species, they all breed and then place the spawn in creche that is monitored by ones designated as child nurses. The humans seem to self-designate roles. It is quite an interesting species dynamic. What do you think? Please come in with questions. The right obelisk operated a small holodisplay nearby. Hello, comer. What is your species and what is your question? Hello, obelisk person. My name is Gielin from Craddock Prime. I love your show. I'm a grazer and my family grows a species called oat. Our main buyers are the human colonies, mainly for use in raising the spawn you mentioned. My question is, if the mother is making nutrient liquids for the young, when do they start using our oats? The obelisk's feelers gyrated. Good question. We are asking our resident human expert now. We welcome Orbit back to the show. Orbit appeared in between the two obelisks. Thank you, obelisks. Always happy to be here. I heard the question. Do you mind if I go ahead and answer? Please go ahead. The obelisks both said in unison. Orbit looked out at the camera. Well, humans' bodies are a unique evolutionary quirk. Their mental capacity is stored in their head, like many species. The larger their head volume, the more mental capacity is capable. The larger their head volume, the greater the risk of trauma to the female when she births one. They have evolved a unique dynamic to overcome this. Quite a bit of their juvenile development is done outside of the mother human. Many species from the human world do all the development inside, and are born quite capable and self-sufficient. Humans are the aberration. Orbit looked at the two obelisks, one after the other. This leads into the answer. Not only is their size and mental capabilities not fully developed, but their entire bodies. The young have hindered digestive tracts only capable of surviving off the nutritional fluids of the mother. But after 100 cycles or so, the digestive capabilities will have caught up to process outside foods, such as your oats. It is also around this time that the young are capable of starting self-sufficient locomotion. The right obelisk turned toward its compatriot. This is stunning. Such a capable species starts off so incapable. Huge species downside. It is amazing, the left one replied. I can see how that has caused the humans to rely so much on one another. They are reliant from their first moments of life. They must have a born-in desire to help and be helped. Is that correct, Orbit? Orbit nodded. Yes. It is a well-documented fact. There are numerous species on the human's homeworld that are stronger, faster, and have better overall senses. Humans, when alone, are actually proven far less capable in wilderness settings than some of their less successful peer species. A human dropped off in a jungle by themselves, by the odds, will end up starving or dying of exposure. It is only when they are in numbers do their capabilities take off significantly. The right obelisk turned to Orbit. Sam was alone here for quite a time, and yet he proved successful. Is this a clue to his success? Is he an aberration? Orbit shook his head. Sam followed the same dynamic as any human. He was separated from other humans, yes, but he was never alone. Humans can utilize mental networks of others just as well as their own. I have been here with him from the start, and he has capitalized off other species throughout the existence of the station. With everyone who has arrived, the overall capabilities of the station has improved. The obelisk on the left turned to the matter maker behind it and pointed at a newly rendered graph. We would like to point out this charting of the economic impact on the Rift Rim. Note these dips when a new species is added to the station. Takes a bit for the new species to find its niche, but quickly the economy rallies shortly after. Orbit nodded. Exactly. We call this the Chuckian additive, named for the Webbian economist Guachuk, who discovered it here in the systems. The dip is caused by the confusion disruption of the newly introduced species, but after the initial learning curve, the species' capabilities are assessed, and their skills are added to the collective. The right obelisk spoke up to the camera. Each species' self-designated roles are identified and added to the collective. It is amazing, we each in turn are added into the human mindset. It looked over at the left obelisk. What risks do you think there are to being overcome by such a dominant species? Are we being subjugated against our wills? The left obelisk looked into the holo camera. Sounds like we have a continual research segment coming. Humans, great ally or potential overlords? I am getting confirmation the segment will air next cycle. We will see you then, watchers. Now to the Grazer-funded segment on oats and their nutritional benefits for herbivorous species rim-wide. Shineless hugged her daughter Caroline and then let her go back on the ground. Little Caroline walked across the tile floor to her grazer nanny Lilfo. Shineless flicked across a sizable amount of clam coin to the grazer. Keep her safe and happy. I know you always do, but this should cover any expenses if anything arises. I will be here on Sparrow if you need me. Just holler at Erebus, okay? The grazer bowed its head to the lead lady of Sparrow. Yes, mistress. My clan and I will keep your house in order. Shineless smiled at her. I know you will. It will only be a few cycles. Would you mind teaching her some grazer words while I'm away? Lilfo lowered her head, looking at the human woman. You wish for your young one to learn our words? Shineless nodded. Of course. Your noises are near ours. I think it would be beneficial if she learned another language. But she will have a calm soon, won't she? I've been reading and watching shows. It seems my people learn languages at this age. I've hired one of my cousins to come soon and teach her in Finnegan. I know quite a bit, but if she learns grazer speech also, she will be even more capable. The grazer looked down at the human. Capable of what? Shineless stepped close to the Lilfo. Your family all talks like grazers, don't they? They are grazers, mistress. But you all share a language, correct? Yes, of course. We are grazers. I don't understand. Shineless thought for a moment, then smiled. Well, one day, when and if she can replicate your speech, how would you feel if she can talk and listen to you without a comm? The grazer woman shifted on her 4 feet and knelt down by the human child, looking baby Caroline in the eyes. If she could talk like a grazer, she could be a grazer. I could understand her words better, I think. We could talk as a people. Shineless nodded. Exactly. Lilfo stood back up to her full height. I will try. It will be an interesting test. Would you mind my family helping me teach her? Shineless nodded. I want her to learn about your people. Please feel free to have your family near her. Just do not hurt her. Of course not. We will take best care of your daughter. Good luck on your trip, mistress. Thank you, Lilfo. Again, call if anything happens. Lilfo bowed again. Shineless left out the front door of the manor and stepped into her autograph mobile. Once seated and buckled in, the autonomous vehicle sped towards the exit of the dome and into the thin atmosphere of the main roads. Shineless looked out at the open sky above. The dark of the void was heavy here away from the plantation lights, but that allowed the beauty of the stars to shine, and she stared at them with a wide smile. The trip was going to be a long one, even at the current high speed. She looked up at the monitor. She still had 3 hours left on the trip. She looked over her itinerary. She paused over a point on it and ran through the topics of discussion in her mind. She paused and tapped on her wrist display, triggering the holo HUD. She tapped the button for Dam and activated the call. Dam answered. She could tell she had woken him up. She smiled at his droopy, sleep-filled eyes. Morning, cutie. Orag, I have some questions. You mind humoring me? He shook his head a bit. Nah, go on. I'm listening. She laughed. I'm sorry. I won't be long. He waved for her to get started. Okay. Say the Webbians' offer is less than what we discussed. What do you want me to do? Dan shut his eyes and laid back down on the pillow. He spoke up at the comm viewer. We want them to settle there, but we want the funds too. So, tell them you have 3 other buyers, which is technically true, and that we will be accepting the highest bid. Also true. You won't have to lie. She nodded. Good. All right. 3 buyers noted, she said as she put in some text on her display. Okay. Erebus was telling me about the crystal. Are you sure we want them to have that? I never felt too sure about them. Think it's a good idea? Dan nodded in his pillow. It is part of the amendments. They are a full-fledged member of the Clouder, and their species deserves their own AI. It is all agreed on, and Erebus will help in its founding. I talked it over with him, and we both agreed he could use the help running the planet. So we're going to be sharing the planet now? She said with an edge. That was always the plan, dear. He turned over, stretching his legs through the blankets. What else you got? If I get more than asking price, can I have it? Yeah, that's your commission. Anything over what we calculated you can have. She smiled. Okay, thank you, dear. Love you, go back to sleep. Kisses and hugs, he replied. Kisses and hugs, she said as she terminated the call. Shineless stretched out in the back seat, her eyes looking up and out at the stars. Commission, she said to herself. Shineless sat up as the trip timer got low. She looked out through the front glass shield and saw the massive atmosphere generator, now cold and quiet, towering over the surrounding hills. It grew ever taller as the transport neared. The craft slowed as a lower-tier sentience program activated the doors to open for her. 2 large doors slid aside, allowing her entry into the space. Inside, the transport hovered through a gaseous mist, stirring the air as it flew through. Eventually, the autograph mobile reached the inner circular chamber. It slowed to safe travel limits and hovered up to the prime housing doors. Inside, Shineless adjusted her newly donned suit and tested its inner atmosphere. All readings proved human nominal. She nodded to herself and activated the disembarking sequence. The transport sucked out the inner atmosphere and then opened the door. She stepped out and approached the housing doors as the craft shut behind her. She reached the doors and activated them to open. She entered the airlock and touched the comm. Shineless Mark arrived, here for potential contract of habitation with Webbian diplomats. Erebus answered. Mark approved. Entry access granted. Level owner. The airlock finished its sequence and the door opened. Shineless smiled as she entered the abandoned facility. Shineless spent the next day prepping a section of rooms that overlooked the main borehole to human standards. She got the composition, humidity, and pressure to where she liked it, and then unsuited. The guests wouldn't arrive until evening, and the food shipments weren't expected for another few hours, so she decided to take a nap. She had a blanket stowed in her luggage, and that, coupled with the basic furnished couch of the room, allowed her a restful sleep. She woke up to a small chime on her wrist. Erebus had sent a message alerting her of the arrival of the food shipment. Shineless got up and around, suiting back up to go out into the thin air. Stepping out from her habitat, she took readings of the air. The composition was human, but thin. She would be gasping for breath if anything happened to her suit. She touched the suit's arm pad. Erebus, what is the status of the Webbian habitat? Hello, ma'am. Good to see you are awake. The Webbian habitat has been prepped on the opposite side of the central hub, near the entrance from the external landing pad. Internal atmosphere composition, pressure, and temperature is optimal for Webbian physiology. Good job. Thank you, Erebus, and the food shipment. It is just outside the airlock, parked behind your limo, ma'am. There is several weeks of human preserves as well as Webbian meal packs. You will have more than enough for your discussions. Very nice. Thank you. Keep watch on me. I'm going to go out and start bringing them in. No need, ma'am. I have several modified Sampo on site and already hauling the pallets inside. She walked over to the outer hall and approached the bay window that overlooked her transport. There behind it was parked a large cube with grav drives mounted under it. Behind the cargo hauler, 3 large shining humanoid machines were systematically retrieving the pallets of food and walking them inside. Those your Sampo things? Yes, ma'am. They are modeled after Tier 1 freight androids, comm-controlled, basic operating programming tie-in, and standard safety protocols in each of them. She walked down the hall to get a better look at the workers. They work better than the box spiders? In certain circumstances, yes. In others, no. In gravity, they are proving an efficient design, especially in human structures. The AI said. They move weird. I don't know if I like them. Feel free to give me feedback. I am continuously modifying the design. Anything you think would be of benefit, I will gladly include. She watched as they bent and pivoted to grab the boxes. They move wrong. I can't move like that. You wish them to move more like a human? Erebus asked. Yes. They'd be less creepy, I think. Sigh, Erebus voiced. This particular phenomenon is called the Uncanny Valley. I will remedy that issue with models that are destined to work around humans in the future. These models are designed with efficiency foremost, and as such that dilemma was left out of my modeling. Thank you for the input. She laughed a bit to herself. You're picking up some sass. Inherent mental structures dictated from the modeling process. My apologies if I offended. No, she said. I like it. Makes you more relatable. You feel less like those things out there. Odd, he replied. I am those things out there. She laughed and walked back toward her new habitat. Shineless woke up startled, unaccustomed to the habitat. Her half-awake self struggled, wanting to find Dam and Caroline. After a moment of looking around the makeshift bedroom, she remembered where she was and walked over to the bathroom. She ran herself a shower, watching the temperature display before getting in. The water ran over her, and she faced her head into the shower head, letting the stream flow over her face. The warmth woke her up, and after cleaning her body, she got out and toweled off. She suited up and exited the airlock back into the main corridors. She looked at the map and noted the dozen life forms now registering in the Webbian wing. Erebus, alert them to my readiness to meet. Readiness sent, and readiness replied, ma'am. They welcome you over to their wing. Accepted. Let them know I am on my way. Yes, ma'am. She walked through the corridor and stopped at the Webbian airlock. It opened for her, and she stepped in. She waited the moments to allow the thick red Webbian atmosphere to fill the lock, and then pressed the appropriate button. She stepped into the entry room and was greeted by 5 of the envoy. 2 were larger and held back, hanging on posts mounted near the ceiling. The 3 smaller specimens swung over and landed on her. Shineless maintained her composure as the creatures climbed over her. Erebus spoke into her ear. The 2 hanging by the door are diplomats. The bluish one on the left is Garek. The yellower one on the right is his wife. These 3 climbing on you are their children. She spoke softly only to Erebus. They're freaking me out. I can feel them moving outside the suit. It's wrong. I've gone through the species file. The young are granted great freedoms and are merely examining you due to curiosity. They're not trying to harm you. Focus on Garek, and they will eventually get bored with you. She nodded and looked at the blue Webbian. Hello. Welcome to Sparrow Garek. I am Shineless. The blue Webbian flicked his strands across the ceiling and latched around another ceiling strut, allowing him to swing closer to her. He stopped a few feet away from her. I came to meet Dam. Where is he? And why is his female addressing me? Erebus pinged up and was about to answer when Shineless spoke up. Dam is away conducting military business, keeping the system safe. I am here to initiate this deal per his instruction. Do you have issues speaking with me? Garek focused his strands of eyes at her, dilating them so as to take in her form. You are known as his wife. You have borne him a child, correct? That is correct. He has no issue with me speaking to you. No, I'm here per his request, she replied. Garak moved back and forth on the crossbeams, looking at her. Well, I am new to human customs. If it is okay with him, then I am okay with this. He spun a portion of body around and started sputtering words at his wife. She flung herself over to the crossbeams near Shineless and looked down at her. I am Fyrek. As your mate is not here, I will discuss the deal with you, as is our custom. Shineless moved her hand slowly and nodded. I am okay with this. Have you looked over the scans of the facility? Fyrek hung lower, letting her eyes be level with the humans. Yes, we have gone over them several times. The proposed modifications to enclose it look perfect for our needs. Shineless smiled. Good. I was told you were wanting to start a colony here with us. The female Webian flexed a bit, raising her body. The three young ones responded and extended up to the ceiling, leaving Shineless's suit. Fyrek then looked back at Shineless. Yes, my husband has done well on Twain Exchange. We have made quite a bit of these clams and wish to spend them. She touched a mechanical dot incorporated into her slimy body, and a hologram of the facility was projected in front of Shineless. We have envisioned a nest of our own for quite a while. We have sired these three despite trying to limit our hormonal responses. It was very difficult for us to import Snalt to Twain for them. This facility will ease that for us, and our friends. Shineless blinked a bit. Snalt. Fyrek looked over at her husband resting in the corner. He pointed at her with 3 lobes of slimy tendrils. She looked back at the human. Thinking how to explain. Creature herbivore required for my species to put eggs on. Symbiotic, I think, is your word. Fyrek scrolled, moved her eyes through her inner display, looking at human words. Yes, symbiotic species. She focused back at Shineless. Snalt are large, hard to keep in space. They can sense gravitational anomalies. Twain proved to be quite trying keeping them happy and secure for our young. Shineless looked at the map of the facility she was displaying. So, you intend to raise these Snalt here so you can raise your children on them? In them is more precise, but yes. This facility has enough space to grow several fields, and that will provide ample room for a predicted 50 Snalt. They will graze happily here. With proper atmosphere processing and facilities added, this will be a premier raising ground for our people. We are quite excited to start this new venture. Shineless brought up the price on the display. And this is the bid you are going with? Fyrek tilted her body. My comm detected that as a question. Is something wrong with our bid? Shineless tilted her head. No, nothing is wrong precisely. We just happen to have several others who are interested in buying this facility, and Dam told me to go with the highest offer. Fyrek hung lower to look at Shineless. I think I understand. She looked over at her husband, who flexed at her. She looked back at Shineless. We are aware of the 2 other consortium member species wishing to purchase this structure. Fyrek modified the number, tripling it. There, they are incapable of matching that. We should be safe with this new bid. You agree? Shineless forced words to her mouth, staring at the number. Yes. Yes, that should keep them out of the running. I will get this to our AI and store it until all bids are in. Fyrek flicked some of her strands. This deal does include the promised AI and crystal, along with the facility, correct? Shineless nodded. Yes. The crystal will be delivered upon receipt of funds, and the AI will be programmed at that time. Fyrek looked at Garak, and the two slumped and retracted in unison. She turned back to Shineless. Then put in our bid. We are happy with this deal. Shineless bowed. I will go back to my room and register it now. Good. We hope to see you soon to finalize then. I hope so as well, Shineless said, and then exited back into the airlock. Her feet moved quickly, every so often with a skip included. Yay! Commission! She shouted through her comm at Erebus. You did good, ma'am. How long will you wait before telling them their bid is good? I'll tell them in the morning. Any of those crates have whiskey in them? Yes, ma'am. Every crate has a bottle included. Get the paperwork started. I'm going to have dinner and a nightcap. Starting now, ma'am.